Welcome to the midweek message from First Grapevine, a United Methodist Church. We're glad you've joined us. Please take a moment and let us know you are watching by registering on our church website or mobile app. We hope this encouraging word will be a blessing for the middle of your week.
Welcome to our midweek message. We're glad you're here. My name's Carly. I'm a pastor here, and I'm joined by Travis and Monica and Grant. We're especially glad to have Grant here today. Grant, you've been gone a little while. Do you want to just share a little bit? Why have you been gone a little while?
I know it probably just looks crazy. For those of you who know me, first of all, I'm a pastor here to our guest, but yeah, I cut all my hair off and took a month off of work and drove across country. Clearly, it's 2020. I took some time off to do some personal things, and it's good to be back.
Yeah, and Monica and I were talking about this earlier, the importance of taking, people are taking vacations right now. You got to take a little bit of an extended one, but the importance of of taking time off and having Sabbath. We've been talking about the creation story, and it says the Bible says, on the seventh day, God rested. And so even if God's resting and if God thinks it's important, then maybe it's important for us. So as we're talking, we're just going to kind of do a catch up because we haven't been in the same room for a while, at least all four of us. I'd love to hear what are some, and Grant, if you feel like starting, that'd be great. What are some things what does Sabbath mean to you?
I appreciate what you said about in the creation narrative that we have. We see that God builds in rest into creation's need for rest and taking a moment. And yes, I think it means taking time to pause both during your day regularly. I think that's very important. I think that having a Sabbath moment in your crazy schedule, because pandemic has just made it crazier, right? Mm-hmm. Like all of life is like running through water. You're spending a lot more energy. You're not getting anywhere. So it's important to take a moment and rest. I think weekly, it's also good you have to have a day off. Mm-hmm. Like a real, even those of us who are professional church people, you just got to have a day where you leave it alone, you set the phone somewhere, and you do other things, other life-giving activities. And then sometimes I think you need a more, protracted time off. Like, I took a month, I helped a friend move, got to spend some time in nature. Just, you need that. And sometimes you need the people around you to tell you that you need a break and to help. And maybe you need to help do that for someone else.
Yeah, and I really appreciate you sharing about that. That's your time off, and so you don't have to, what you share is what you want to share. But I think it is helpful for us to. Do you have anything that you want to share? You're laughing.
Well, I don't know. I feel like I've talked with all of you. I don't know what's interesting to you, but do you want to hear what I did? Like, for the premise?
If you would like to. I'd love to hear it.
I've lost my sensitivity to what is and isn't good television now. So,
well, I never had it, so it's fine.
So a friend of mine is in the Army, very good friend. For those of you who are who remember back when we could do normal church and you could hear me say this live, he used to come up here a lot to help whenever my daughter Amelia was born. He just helped make sure she got in and out of the car safely and all that. He's a captain in the Army. And he just last year got stationed in North Carolina, did really well in that I would call it an appointment, but they call it something else. And now has been reappointed, to use our churchy word, to Alaska, to Anchorage. And it's a global pandemic, so traveling is different, moving is different. And he has a giant dog, he's an Anatolian Shepherd, and you have to Google that.
Anatolian Shepherd. I've never heard that.
It's like a fictional cartoon version of a German Shepherd. Like take a German Shepherd and then make it like Harry Potter proportions of huge. And this dog is this peaceful, calm nature of some you just expect him to start talking at any moment, like in a deep voice, saying really calm, wise things, like that kind of dog. And can't ship him, can't take him on a boat. Like, so literally to get him there, I had to drive him all the way. And I was supposed to drive, so I flew to North Carolina, and we were supposed to drive all the way to Alaska. I got stopped at the border because just a few days before they stopped allowing people help anyone across. They were allowing essential people with the military to go all the way to Alaska. A few days before I got there, they stopped allowing anyone, any buddies, like no more buddy system. Too many people were violating it, and so that was done. And I had to find a way to fly back home. But mission accomplished. My friend made it all the way. The dog is fine. We posted that picture of the dog on the console, like looking around. Yeah. But it was such a blessing to get to spend time with, I have to say friends, because I have a relationship with this dog now. We rode in a truck across the country. Yeah, it's personal. With my friends, and to see so much of God's creation. It's really interesting how that fits with our series now that I'm coming back, because, and Travis and I were talking about this earlier. Like, now's a bad time to do international travel, bad time to do a lot of things you're used to. It's not a bad time for a road trip, because we went to a few national parks, and people it's spread out. We're on hiking trails, you're out in the open, and it's just so beautiful. So much of the world, I get to do a lot of international travel, and I think of places I'd like to go that are really far off. But some of the most beautiful natural creation that I've seen in my life is right here in the United States. So, yeah.
And I think Sabbath too, you're talking about this road trip, which when I think a road trip, moving someone across the country or through another country back to our country, that sounds like a lot of work, but sometimes just the change of pace and the change of scenery is helpful. I know when I worked in youth ministry, I loved having the summer because you could just do things a little differently, and you can change up what you're doing. And almost now, I think this pandemic, as frustrating as it is, it's allowed me to change my pace and kind of change up what I'm doing, and I'm trying to see that as a gift. But I'd love to hear from, y'all have young kids, both have busy lives, how do you...
All of us have busy lives.
Yeah.
And all of you do too.
Yeah. How do you celebrate the Sabbath? How do you take those moments to rest and to, or what does Sabbath mean to you even? Why is it important for your life of faith?
Well, a few weeks ago, I talked about having holy places. And so in that sermon, one of the holy places for us is Salado. I pastored there, Laura pastored there. Erin was born there. We had her baptized there. We were married there. We dated there. So that is just one of those places. And so this year, Erin turned 5 on July 31st. And so couldn't do a party. So, what do we do? So we decided to take a trip to the holy place. So we took 4 days down to Salado. There's a bed and breakfast there, an old historic bed and breakfast, which is situated in the neighborhood where the parsonage is across the street on one side, and then across the street and through one row of houses is the Methodist Church. So literally, when we go, we get a cut rate. We have a relationship with the owner. And so we stay there, and it's almost like going home. And so Erin just loves it. And so that was our gift to her. We couldn't do the party, so we took a lot of her gifts and had one of our best friend pastors there now. And so just a lot of connections for us there. We have some great friends that we spent some time with. And what was interesting as we drove down, Erin was asleep. She woke up just as we turned down Main Street, and she looks up and she sees where we are. And she says, "Oh, we're home." And it's something about having and taking the time to do those kinds of things. Because the purpose of all of that in Sabbath and holy space is to renew, is to open yourself to what God can do in and through such space and time. And it was an incredibly renewal for us. When we got down there, we were both Laura and I were surprised at, number one, how tired we were. Because the pace in this craziness is strange, and I appreciate the fact you're trying to find a rhythm in it. So far, I've really struggled with that. But by the nature of this, it's got us all a little awkward and a little off balance. And so trying to find this Sabbath and take the kind of time that Grant's talking about in moments in the day, if you're not careful, you can get eaten alive by just what the pandemic sort of creates, and we allow it to create in our lives.
I like that you brought up a physical place, and almost like going to that place is a reset button. Mm-hmm. I think when we look at our schedules and we've got all these things to do, and we're supposed to just not do them. But if there's a place that you can associate with rest and renewal, then sometimes physically removing yourself and going to another place, if that's possible, can be incredibly life-giving. So thanks.
Well, yeah, and down there was a rhythm created just by being there. And of course, we kind of stayed clear. We did what we're doing here down there in a place that we believe to be safe, but the rhythm was very different. Mm-hmm. And we both didn't realize how badly we needed a change in the rhythm. In fact, I would encourage all of us, and you folks watching, to look at your screen time.
Yeah, because your fancy phone or device will tell you how long you're spending time looking at something and what.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and be careful. Just be careful.
Yeah.
I've
a way to create those little moments of Sabbath and
and pull away from the kinds of things that, if we're not careful, can really eat up the time, the space, without us even being aware and realizing how easy we've gotten pulled into it. There are a lot of things in our culture out there like that.
We haven't gone on any trips. We did take a day trip this weekend to Glen Rose to do some family things, but we haven't gone anywhere. We haven't done anything.
Did you go to Fossil Rim?
Oh yeah. We went to Fossil Rim. We did the dinosaurs. We did the river, all that kind of stuff. But we haven't gone anywhere more than a few hours. Like, we're still, we haven't done any of that kind of thing. So for me, like, I know you guys know what I'm talking about. It's really hard. Well, maybe you do, maybe you don't. It's really hard with the age that my child is. He's about to turn 6. The amount of time we've been spending together, his whole life, but the last few months especially, we're always together. We're always touching. We're always talking. If we're across the house, he's yelling to me. Like, we are never not together, and I love him. But it's hard to be around anyone, even someone you love a lot, all the time. We kind of have, Robert has quiet time, even though he's almost 6. He still gets like an hour of quiet time in his room. And that is that's my little Sabbath of the day. And sometimes I am doing dishes or catching up on laundry, but part of that time, but I really try to not. I really try to sit and read or, do something, go sit on the back porch, something like that. I just try to spend at least half of that hour doing something that is restful for me and something that's valuable to me. Because the rest of the day, I don't have it. I don't have, there's no like downtime until everyone's exhausted and then we go to bed. So yeah, they're outside of a big trip or like a time to go somewhere. For us, it's just been like having to make time, like having to say, you go hang out in your room, I'm going to go hang out in my room, and then I'll see you in 45 minutes or whatever. And that's helpful for sure.
And Monica, I relate. We're in the same boat with Aaron.
And I mean, like they need more now because of how uncomfortable and unpredictable things are. Kids don't do well in unpredictable situations, so they kind of latch on even more. And so, yeah, it's a lot of togetherness.
It's exhausting. Erin's done the same thing. She just wants us 24/7.
Yeah.
I like what you said about finding something that's restful. I have two friends who I went to seminary with, and they, at the end of Fridays, they wouldn't do homework, they wouldn't work, they wouldn't really respond to text messages even, but what they would do is at the end of the day, Thursday, they would ask themselves, what's the thing that would be the most restful for us? And some weeks they said, okay, we're gonna stay home and we're gonna watch Netflix all day. And some days it was, okay, we're gonna go eat at our favorite restaurant and explore this new hiking trail. And there's something that rejuvenates them. And I think that when we talk about Sabbath, we often talk about just shutting off our work and shutting off those things that, aren't essential, like eating or sleeping. But we don't ask ourselves, what's going to be rejuvenating? What's going to renew me? And so I think that's really important, even if it's, an hour every day.
Yeah, Carly, there's something I need to say in this and the importance of Sabbath. I had a stroke on January 6th. And the reason I had a stroke was because I wasn't doing this. I mean, I was working nonstop. I would wake up at 2 a.m. and just be wide awake, and I'd be thinking about the sermon, and I'd pull out my device, and I'd spend an hour and a half. I mean, it was consuming me. And my body finally said, buddy, if you're not wise enough to monitor this on your own, then let me help you. And so, I mean, talking about learning a lesson about the presence of rest and Sabbath, it's a hard way to learn it. But I'm here to tell you that if we don't discipline ourselves to do this in a regular, methodical way, we pay the price for it. Physically, emotionally, spiritually, psychologically.
And I think it comes from a place of feeling, there's a phrase, you're a human being, not a human doing. And that's been really important to me because I want to find my worth in, I've accomplished this many things or I've done this much. And I had a pastor who told me once, Sabbath is a day where you have to sit there and rest and recognize that God still loves you when you're doing nothing, which is, I think, really hard for us to grasp sometimes.
I agree.
I think also it's hard when, I think we would all say that our jobs are important and our jobs are good, and we do the what we produce and the productivity that comes out of us doing our job are good things. And so it's hard, I think, at least for me, it's hard to tell myself to slow down and stop doing what I think are good things, because why would I do that? If I'm doing good things, why would I stop? But it's important to have those boundaries where you're able to look at yourself and say, this isn't healthy for my body. This isn't healthy for my family. This isn't healthy for my heart. You have to be able to draw those boundaries and say, hey, I have to stop doing this good thing because these other good things are just shriveling up and dying while I'm working on this. And that's not how it's supposed to be. You know what I mean? I think that part of when you look at the creation story, and God did one thing at a time, and then he said it was good and he stopped. And then he did another thing, and then he said it was good and he stopped. And then finally at the end he rests. And it's not because he was exhausted. It's because he had done the things that he needed to do in the proper way. And he stopped and just looked at it all and how good it was. And that's good for us too. Like, you can do lots of good things, but give yourself time to stop and rest in between. You can't do all of it all the time. I think that we tell ourselves that we can, because as long as what comes out is good, then what we're doing is good. And that there's part of that is true, but if the rest of your life is suffering based on this good outcome, that's not a balance. That's not a healthy way to do it.
Well, and I think we buy into the cultural concept, you can have it all, you can do it all. That's just not true, friends. Life is about commitments. It's about what you choose to do. It's about how you choose to be, and those two are connected. And what we fail by trying to do it all and go and be it all, and I mean, we end up sacrificing some of the most important parts of who we are, and we misuse so much of what God gives us. And it takes discipline. It's just a disciplined way of living.
I think as you're taking your vacations, or maybe you don't feel like you have a safe option to do that right now, to remember why it's important, to not feel guilty about it, and to be able to remember that your worth is there just because God created you, not because of anything you do or don't do. So thanks for sharing y'all's perspective. Anything y'all want to add about Sabbath before we move on? Okay. I wanted to take a few minutes. We've got some exciting stuff that we're planning for the fall as we kind of summer is starting to wind down. We've got something called the Jesus Project that our church is embarking on. And Grant, I was wondering if you could share a little bit about what that means. The Jesus Project.
Yes, I think maybe I can.
Oh, I feel like you're trolling me a little bit.
Well, I'm curious to hear what you have to say about the Jesus Project. So, coming up, we're not launching into a new series, if you will, or a theme. Our church is committing to an immersion experience into the teachings and ministry of Jesus Christ. I think this is always an important thing to do, but I think especially now, as we look at our changing world of pandemic, unrest, big picture questions, and really localized frustrations, we want to know what to do next with ourselves and with our community. And I think as we face a daunting challenge every single day, we have to go to the best source material that we have. And if you look at the story of Jesus, the lives of the people who just spent time with them, which that's what he said to his disciples, just come and see. It wasn't sign a belief statement or be sure you have to be at least this tall and handsome to ride, just all these things. No, just come and see. And they immersed themselves in the life of Jesus, and they were forever changed, and the people that they got to know were changed as well for the better. And so we as a community want to commit to that, to really taking it seriously.
Yeah, so over the next 9 months, instead of these like individual sermon series, you can just expect, and in fact, you can go on our website and see that we're going to spend 9 months in the Gospels, in those first 4 books of the New Testament, hearing about Jesus's ministry and life and teaching, and to see. And the hope is that we learn those things either for the first time, we hear those stories for the first time, or for the 1,000th time, that we let Jesus speak to us, and that it doesn't, it's not just a story, but it's something that impacts who we are and what we do as people of faith. And so we're going to invite you to go ahead and start to read through those stories. If you check out our website, firstgrapevine.org/Jesus Project, you can find, we've got some bookmarks. Oh yeah, Travis has
Here, hand that to me, and I'll hold it up where Patrick can see it. Patrick, alternate camera. Are you ready, buddy? Are you ready?
There's this nice...
Keep talking, Carly.
Okay, there's this nice bookmark that's got all the scriptures that we're going to read for the next 9 months. And we're hoping on August 23rd that you'll start reading through those with us each day, read 1 or 2, and to just pray about the people that are going to hear these stories for the first time, and pray that it'd be impactful for them.
I'm really excited. I think it's going to be so fun. I think it's going to be really exciting. I just think that, I don't know, I don't feel like we necessarily always get the best opportunity. Maybe we get a good opportunity to learn the stories of Jesus, but we don't necessarily always, at least I know I haven't taken the time to like get to know who Jesus is as a person, like put all the stories together, like line it up and see how it looks as a whole and what it is as a whole, instead of breaking it up into stories that we hear, like these are the ones we hear in December, these are the ones we hear in April, these are the ones that we kind of maybe hear randomly throughout the year, but to like smush them all together, make one thing out of it, and just get to know Jesus as a person, as a whole. I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, and I am too, Monica, because I think you'll hear, we're in the wilderness, and we've said that oftentimes. That's a powerful biblical image and experience, and it's certainly a part of living. And so a lot of times you'll hear, coaches when they go through a downtime and they lose a lot of games, they say, well, we got to get back to basics. Well, this is the basics. Jesus Christ is the most perfect revelation of God's love in the world. That's part of what we believe, and it's part of the redemption that Christ brings. And so, in this craziness, what better place to go than to be reminded of the basics as the one who lived as close to the love of God as we have in the world. And so I'm excited about this too, and I think it's exactly what we need in a time like this.
So we hope you'll join us as we start this in September. There's going to be more information about it. If you want to immerse yourself in it a little bit more than just a worship service, we've got some opportunities for that. So stay tuned for that.
How do they get a hold of this bookmark? This is amazing.
That's that. If you go to firstgrapevine.org/Jesus Project, it's going to be there, and they could screenshot it on their phone, or they can print it out, and they can check off their scriptures every day if they want to follow along with us.
It looks like just in a few weeks, you can read all of the scriptures for the entire 9-month experience.
You're right, Grant. You can.
Just a little bit of reading every day. Just a wee bit. That's all it takes. And then just a few weeks, you've read it all.
And he picked up on that after having been gone.
There we go. Yeah. Look at that. If I can figure this out, you can too.
Thanks for joining us for the midweek message. We hope you have a great week. And if there's something that you'd like to talk to one of us about, feel free to reach out. Our emails are on the church website, and we'd love to hear from you. Thanks.
For current information about the effects of COVID-19 precautions at First Grapevine Church, visit firstgrapevine.org/COVID-19 updates.